Okay, what is up guys? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be doing a recap of the marathon I just ran on January 30th, the Callaway Marathon in Georgia. I've already posted the actual marathon video documenting this entire day, so I will link that in the description of this video, so you can go ahead and watch that before you watch this. But yeah, it's my first marathon, my first race really. I've never ran a 5K race or a 10K race or a half marathon. Obviously I've ran those distances, but I've never ran like a race with a bunch of people, so it was a pretty cool experience. But let's just get into the race day, how I expected it to go, how I planned it to go, then how it actually went. So the morning of the race was starting at 7:30, so my plan was to wake up at 4:30, 3 hours before the marathon started, so I could actually get woken up before the race, and so I could get my breakfast in, so I have some fuel in me, and so I could use the bathroom, get everything out of the way before the race, and so we could have enough time to get from our hotel, which was like a 20-25 minute drive, so we didn't have to worry about getting there late. But of course, wake up the morning of the marathon, and you know this if you've watched the marathon video, but woke up with this killer migraine, felt super nauseous, and wasn't able to get my breakfast in. We contemplated not even going to the race. I woke up at 4:30. At 5 o'clock, I took a nap. Didn't set an alarm or anything. Woke up at 6:30, which I was lucky that I didn't sleep through the entire marathon. But woke up at 6:30. We packed our shit in like 5-10 minutes, and we got to the race 10 minutes before it started. So super lucky that all of this even happened, what we're about to get into. But yeah, got there 10 minutes before the race, did a little warm up, just swing my legs, and got into the race, which we will get into now. So my nutrition plan for the race was to pop one of these honey stingers, which is just a pack of like 7 gummies in this thing. It's not really as convenient as these Clif gels, but we went to Walmart the night before. The only Clif gel they had was this mocha flavor. I've used this mocha flavor during like my marathon prep, and I've also used these honey stingers during prep, and both of them didn't mess up my stomach or anything, so I knew that going into the race. But this mocha flavor just tastes like a butthole, so I didn't want to be using this during the race. Although, I mean, these don't taste, it's not like these are like, oh, these taste so good. It's really all about putting nutrients into your body so we can avoid hitting the wall later in the race. But I just opted to go with these. So my nutrition plan was taking one of these every 4 miles, and I had a bottle of water with some electrolytes in there, so I was taking a sip of that every 2 miles. So that was my nutrition plan going into the race. And my goal pace for the race was 7:30, having an average pace of 7:30 for the entire race. So that was my plan for the race. So getting to the actual race, I believe there was 81 marathoners, which isn't a lot of marathon runners. It's my first race, so I mean, it was cool to run with 81 people, and then there were the half marathoners who started their race like 30 minutes after. So it was cool to actually run with people this entire marathon prep, 27 weeks, almost 7 months. I was doing it all by myself, like I haven't ran with anybody during this entire prep. So it was cool to actually run with people, but that only lasted so long. Started off the race at our goal pace of 7:30, and it pretty much ended up just being me and 2 other guys. One guy was a little bit heavier, he was killing it, but I was not hoping he was gonna fall off, but really just waiting for him to fall off, and he did around mile 7. So pretty much from mile 7 to the end of the race, I was isolated by myself. Pretty much only saw people whenever I was coming out of a place that they were just getting into, but it was pretty cool. Everybody was super supportive of each other, telling each other, good job, keep going. So that was a pretty cool atmosphere. Again, haven't been running with anybody this entire prep, so being by myself wasn't anything new. It didn't really even feel like a race, to be honest. It just felt like any other distance run I've been doing for the past 7 months on the weekends. It was just a little bit longer. So the 2 weeks leading up to the marathon, I had been having major GI issues. I could not go more than 2 miles without having to find a bathroom. So I was really worried about race day. I really didn't want to deal with that on race day. It's really frustrating because I don't have any control over it, and I mean, you're not gonna run a good time or maybe my goal time if I'm in the bathroom every 2 miles. But luckily, I only had to use the bathroom in between miles 7 and 8, and then again on in between miles 10 and 11, which after that, I did not have to use the bathroom again. So for the last half of the marathon, didn't have any gut issues or anything, so I was super thankful about that. But I will put my paces on the screen for you guys for the first half marathon on the screen for you guys right now. I mean, I don't know what you're gonna get from this because the paces are like this, because it was rolling hills, a couple steep inclines for, it felt like forever sometimes. But you can see here in between miles 7 and 8, I had a big spike in my pace, which I only spent a minute in the bathroom, which wasn't a big deal. And again, in between miles 10 and 11, another spike of, I think that was my highest pace, my longest pace of the entire marathon, and it was because we had to go to the bathroom. It is what it is. You have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to the bathroom. I'm not the only one dealing with gut issues during the race. So, I mean, it is what it is. And then I will put the last half of the marathon on the screen for you guys. We had negative splits the last 4 miles of the marathon. So, I mean, we had a little bit of gas in the tank that we emptied, but the entire marathon, it felt great. My breath felt fine the entire time. I was never gasping for air. But towards the end of the race, my body just started getting stiffer and my feet started hurting, my hips, my mobility just got worse and worse and worse. So it was definitely harder towards the end of the race, but we got through it. And yeah, then we pretty much finished the race. I ended up running on the marathon video. The clock says 3:23, but on the results that I will link down in the description below, it says I ran at 3:20 with an average pace of 7:38 per mile, which 3 minutes difference. It is what it is. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, that's pretty much how the race went. That was my results from the race. Now let's get into some Q&A questions from you guys.
And I've been chilling, watching it.
Okay, so my training plan for the marathon was BPN's free marathon training plan, which they posted like a couple years ago, but it's still up on their website. I have had it linked in the description of every video since I originally told you what my training plan was, like video 1 or 2 of this entire marathon prep. It's not individual, obviously, it's not a very individual plan, but it definitely did the job and definitely guided me in the right direction, because I had no idea what I was doing whenever it came to running. So I'm super thankful for that free marathon training plan. Again, it's gonna be linked in the description of this video too. If you want to run a half marathon or a full marathon, go check that out and see what it can do for you. I would say the hardest part about the marathon wasn't actually the race itself, but the 27 weeks leading up to the marathon. You have to be consistent, you have to be disciplined. You can't be like on whenever you're 20 weeks out, you can't be like, oh, I'm gonna take this week off, I have 20 weeks to make up for it. It's like, no, you have to be super consistent to get the results you want. There's no way around it. So the actual day of the marathon, I wouldn't say, I mean, it was tough at some parts, and I'll get into that, but I mean, the overall just being consistent for 27 weeks was the hardest part, and I definitely did that. The only weeks that were bad was whenever I was dealing with like major gut issues and I could not run really. But yeah, I mean, consistency, discipline was definitely the hardest part of the marathon. Luckily, during the marathon, the 2 times I did have to go to the bathroom, I was rolling up on a porta potty as soon as I had to. But, I mean, during the marathon prep, I definitely had some moments whenever I was 7 miles away from my car and the nearest bathroom, and I felt like I was never gonna run again, because that was the most miserable I've ever been. 7 miles away from a bathroom, can't run, you have to walk straight up because you're clenching, man. And because the gut issues are so bad. But I mean, that was the only time I've ever felt like I was gonna poop my pants, really. And it was during the marathon prep, not during the race.
Down to mess me up, tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock.
A lot of people say the first half of the marathon is miles 1 through 20. And then the last half of the marathon is that last 10K, miles 20 through 26.2. But a memorable mile for me at that point was mile 22. I was hurting a little bit on miles 22, but from that point I had already ran, I mean, the race was going according to plan. I was at my goal pace or slightly above it, and everything was going well. And we're not just gonna give up just 4 miles away from the finish line. So really just digging deep right there and finishing out the race strong. Luckily, I was fortunate enough not to run into the wall during the race. I don't know how I didn't run into the wall because I didn't really get to fuel myself for breakfast before the race, but my nutrition during the race was pretty much on point. So I was lucky enough not to run into the wall. I would say I was pretty much running alongside the wall, pushing myself, but not pushing myself to the extreme to where I would eventually run into the wall. Like, there's a fine line right there. But I have definitely ran into the wall before during marathon prep, and a couple times are very memorable to me. I remember the first time I ran 10 miles, it was like week 1 or 2. And that was the longest distance I've ever ran in my life at that point. I remember running into the wall then. And I remember the first time I had an 18-mile run during my marathon prep. I remember running into the wall on mile 16. It was pouring down rain. I found the bench and had to sit down because I couldn't breathe. Everything, I just felt like shit. I could not go any further, but sat there in the pouring rain for a few minutes, and then I finished out the 2 miles. But yeah, fortunately, I did not run into the wall on race day. I don't think I would do anything different in my training. Everything went smoothly. We hit our goal. I'm sure the more knowledgeable I get in running, I may have a different answer for you. But our training was pretty much 80-20. 80% of our runs were slow, comfortable runs. 20% of our runs were track workouts or threshold runs. And I definitely owe a lot to me doing research and learning from a lot of different people on YouTube and their experiences and what they regret doing whenever they first started marathon prepping or doing whatever they're doing. And a lot of people had the same regret, and it was they were following a program and it didn't matter what miles they had that day, what distance they had. Either it was 3 miles, 5 miles, 8 miles, or 15 miles. They would run that distance as hard and as fast as they could, and that is just not as optimal as slow, comfortable runs. I mean, slow, comfortable runs have their place. So do speed runs, so do track workouts and threshold runs and all that. A lot of people are brought up thinking, hey, no pain, no gain. You have to feel like shit to make progress, and that's just not the truth. You can make tons of progress with your slow, comfortable runs, building an aerobic base so you can eventually hold those faster paces for longer. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything about my training. Fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. I will definitely run another marathon in the future. I'm not sure when, but the next marathon, we're definitely gonna be shooting for a sub 3-hour marathon. And what's next? Hey, you're gonna have to subscribe and find out. I'll see you in the next video.